This is that they held a news conference and the head of the DOC accepted responsibility. Came out and just said, look, the buck stops with me, I accept responsibility. That was nice to hear.
Well, I'll tell you, I've worked with Secretary Cruz. He was actually an assistant secretary of FDLE originally, has always been a humble guy and a guy who, like Harry Truman says, the buck stops here kind of philosophy. And so while certainly this was a failing, he owned up to it. He's been very forthcoming and has acknowledged and made recommendations. One of the other recommendations he made is when we're dealing with sentencing issues, if there's a release date and they have not confirmed with the judge, we may need to give them statutory authority to hold someone for another couple hours or a day or so until that confirmation is made, because there are constitutional issues about that. So that was a pretty important recommendation he made that we'll be making part of law to assure we have absolute confirmation before those prison doors open.
And the biggest concern in this particular case was the two men who escaped from the Panhandle prison were both convicted killers. It's not like they were burglars or something like that.
There was absolutely a public safety issue. The public was at risk, and that's why our hair was on fire over this issue. It was just, I could not believe it. But from here, I'm tasked with making solutions, and that's what we're going to be setting out to do, is making sure that this never happens again. And I know that in the future, as technology progresses, 5-10 years from now, we'll be dealing with yet another sophisticated plot that we'll have to foil once again. And that's what it's like to be a legislator, constantly tweaking as society changes our laws to keep the public safe.
What are some of the other hot issues that you're dealing with in the criminal justice committees right now?
Right now, an issue that's bubbling up more and more is issues dealing with notaries. I had a bill based upon a tragedy that happened to one of my constituents, where the guy was living, an elderly gentleman was living with two caretakers who got a notary to forge documents showing that he transferred his home to them while he was unconscious, dying in the hospital. And his daughter, a woman named Sally Batiste, came to me, one of my constituents, and said that the notary didn't remember, so that she did the notarization and tried to use that as a defense. So my bill would require that they have notary logs. And now there's a concern coming up that there are felons who are getting notary certificates. So one of the issues will be funding to make sure the governor's office has enough staff to review this, but another may be that we need to tighten up the rules, because these are folks who sign on to very important documents, notes, mortgages, oaths that you're going to make, affidavits in front of court. So while it isn't rocket science on how you have to notarize something, they have to be honest, or else big trouble can happen with regard to people's lives and financial information.
Interesting. All right, we're going to squeeze in a quick commercial break here, and then when we come back, we'll talk about the projected budget surplus and the state budget looking ahead to the new year. Take a quick break here. Orlando Matters continuing with a bunch of issues that affect Florida when we come back.